الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله فإن الله مع المتقين وبعد. The Prophet ﷺ, he gave us a methodology of application for Islam in our lives and a methodology of application for that which we perhaps would not consider application of Islam, that which we would consider to be outside of the remit of worship and practicing, etc., but in fact falls into practicing. falls into worshipping. And that relates to ourselves and our families. The way we conduct ourselves with ourselves and the way we conduct ourselves with our families. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, he said in front of some of his companions, his friends, that he was going to dedicate himself to praying the nights and fasting the days. And the Prophet ﷺ, he heard about this. And he asked him, is this what you said? And he said, yes. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, this is not the correct way. He said, إِنَّ لِنَفْسِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقًّا وَلِرَبِّكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقًّا وَلِأَهْلِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقًّا فَأَعْطِي كُلَّ ذِي حَقٍّ حَقًّا. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, for yourself you have rights, i.e. upon yourself you have rights. And your Lord has upon you rights. And your family have upon you rights. Therefore give to all who have upon you rights the rights that they deserve. Be moderate in your approach. You cannot fast the days and pray the nights except that it's going to have an impact on your nafs, yourself. And from this, the fuqaha, the ulama, they speak about the importance of a person seeking out time for his or her self, time for resting, time for leisure, a break away from the dunya and from the responsibilities that come with the dunya. And as was mentioned, Islam is a balanced approach, and we find this throughout the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and throughout the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when speaking about eating and drinking, says, "Kulu washrabu wa la tusrifu." Eat and drink, but do not be excessive. Do not be wasteful. Do not starve yourself of this dunya, but do not overindulge in this dunya. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Ma amartukum bihi fa'tu minhu mastata'tum, wa ma nahaytukum anhu fajtanibuh." The Prophet ﷺ, he said, that which you have been commanded towards, that which has been prescribed upon you, do of it as much as you can. But within the prohibitions, the Prophet ﷺ said, stay away from them. Stay clear away from them. Look at the contrast in language. The first, فَأْتُوا مِنْهُ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Do of it that which you can, i.e. the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ta'at, the ibadat. Do of the worship that which you are able to do. But as for the prohibitions, the Prophet ﷺ didn't say, فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Stay away from it as much as you can. No. The Prophet ﷺ said, فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. Stay completely away from it. No condition. If you see that which leads to sin on one side of the road, cross the road. If you don't trust yourself to be around it. And from this, the fuqaha, they say anything, any place which may lead a person to sin should be avoided by that person. Why? Because it becomes a route to sin. It becomes a means of sinning. Some of the fuqaha, some of the ulama, the awliya of the past, they would not want to look at a person who is sinning openly. Why? Because they were afraid that their hearts would become desensitized to sin. That's how severely they took sin. But as for ibadah, the Prophet ﷺ, he said to an individual that came to him, if I fast Ramadan and I pray the obligatory prayers and I give my zakah and I don't do anything other than that, I don't increase nor do I decrease from that, will I receive Jannah? The Prophet ﷺ said, if you do nothing more and nothing less, you will receive Jannah. And as he was walking away, the Prophet ﷺ said to his Sahaba, it's a man of paradise if he's true to his word. That man is a man of paradise if he's true to his word. The fara'id, the obligations and the obligations alone. The voluntary prayers, they're voluntary. The voluntary fasting, voluntary. Memorization of the Quran, for some, fard. But as long as we as an ummah have a collective of individuals that have memorized the Quran, for everyone else, voluntary. Studying of the deen, voluntary. But staying away from the sin, compulsory, upon every single individual. I cannot stay away from sin for another man, nor can another man stay away from sin for me. But he can memorize the Quran on my behalf, and I can memorize the Quran on his behalf. If there are two of us, and we are alone, isolated somewhere in the world, and one of us memorizes the Quran, the other doesn't have to. Why? Because I have relieved him, or he has relieved me of that collective duty. But as for sin, individual. And so the way that we apply ourselves in Islam, the way that we apply ourselves with the deen, we have to find that balanced approach. In the middle. Time for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but time as well for leisure, for the self. So that when I have my time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I apply myself with full conviction, and I'm motivated, and I have a recharged battery. But if I overdo it, if I overburden myself, if I'm overzealous, then I will lose my ability to apply myself with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And shaitan comes in multiple ways. Shaitan will not try to make a person stop salah completely if they're already a person who prays. But he may try to make that person overburden himself, so that prayer becomes difficult and they burn out and they end up leaving it down the road. Education in Islam. Shaitan will not tell a person that has the conviction to learn, don't learn. But shaitan might tell him, you're not doing enough. You need to do more. You're memorizing a page, memorize 3. And so on and so forth. Until you find that person a few months down the line, a few years down the line, they have burnt out. And how many young people fall into this trap? They become Muslim. One day, the next day, they've cut off all ties with those who they believe are not practicing Islam properly. They've left off everything they used to do. They've completely changed the way they dress, changed the way they talk. And slowly but surely, they begin to burn out. Why? Because they've gone from 100 miles per hour in one lifestyle and tried to jump into another lifestyle, 100 miles per hour. If you're driving at full speed and you try to turn onto another road, suddenly you're going to crash and burn. Likewise with the way that we live, same thing. We have to slow down, turn the corner slowly, build up some stability. And it's the holidays now, and usually we always encourage ourselves and the community to spend time with the family, to educate our families. But it's important to remember there is a middle path. There is a middle path. Too much can be problematic. Too little can be problematic. And perhaps that's one of the quests of life, to find that wasatiyah, that middle path, the balanced approach. And of course there are shortcuts. Listening to those who are older than us, those who have more experience than us. Reading from history so that we don't repeat it. But it's a time to reflect as well in the holiday. Am I giving time to myself? We see, for example, in this time, generally speaking, there is an increase in individuals suffering with anxiety, depression, OCDs, and all of these clinically diagnosed conditions. And here, we are not going to be informed about the spiritual side of those diagnoses. We're not going to be informed about the lifestyle that leads to those diagnoses. Islam teaches us wasatiyah. If not, we can harm ourselves. Al-Dhahabi, rahimahullah ta'ala, in Siyar A'lam al-Nubala, he mentions many individuals. He will praise them. He used to fast the days and pray the nights and pray extra nawafil, give sadaqat, attend halaqat. He was known as a zahid and abid and so on and so forth. But then he lost his mind. Why? Because he exerted himself too much in trying to tame the nafs. And he will comment, the best way is the way of the Prophet ﷺ, al-wasatiyah. Time for yourself, time for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and time for the family. And we live in an extreme condition where we have to do everything at 100 miles per hour. With ourselves, 100 miles per hour. With Allah, 100 miles per hour. With our families, 100 miles per hour. And eventually, if we're not careful, we can break ourselves. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله وحده وصلوات ربي وسلامه على أشرف الأنبياء ومن تبعه وبعد. Perhaps the secret to being moderate and balanced in our approach is to remind ourselves that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is in control. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who provides, not only financially, but provides family, provides that which we acquire of intellectual capacity and knowledge, etc., provides the next role that we're going to have. And so to slow down a little bit and allow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enter into our hearts as He's already in control of things. And it's important that with our families, we try to find that balanced approach. If not, perhaps in the long run, we are going to harm ourselves and harm our households. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be people of wasatiyah and find a balanced approach in this life, in our deen, with our families, and with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وارض اللهم عن أبي بكر وعن عمر وعن عثمان وعن علي وعن سائر الصحابة أجمعين اللهم تب علينا واعف عنا واهدنا إنك مجيب الدعوات وأقم الصلاة. Huh? Is a class on this evening? No, no class.